Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of What's Next. So in the last episode, which was actually my introduction episode to this new chapter that I'm in, I shared a little bit about the transition from Heal, Learn and Grow for Purposeful Living into this new chapter called What's Next. And the idea behind the space is very, very simple. It's about the moments in life where we find ourselves standing in between where we've been and where we're going, and not really having all the answers or not being sure of what the next step actually looks like. And if we're really being honest, those moments can feel very uncomfortable. I know for me they definitely do. There's something about the question, what's next, that makes people feel very uneasy, that makes me feel very uncomfortable. Not because the future is necessarily bad, but rather because the future is unknown. And we're living in a world that really values certainty and some sense of control. And if you are like me, you're somebody that likes having a plan, you like having or working with timelines, and you like knowing exactly what's going on or what's going to be happening. So in essence, you like having control or a sense of control. But a quick wake-up call for me was the fact that life doesn't actually work that way. Sometimes we finish one season, maybe we've healed, maybe we've grown, maybe we've let go of certain things that were once important, and suddenly you find yourself standing in a quiet space where the next step hasn't fully been revealed yet. And can I tell you how uncomfortable that space is, of leaving the comfortability of where you've been and what you've known, and not having reached where you know you should be or where you want to be, but just standing in that gray area of life is very, very uncomfortable. I like to think of that as the in-between season. It's the place between what was and what will be. And the truth is, many of the most important seasons of growth actually happen there, even though it doesn't quite feel like that. Even though you don't have all the answers, and even though you are the most uncomfortable in that season, that's the place where you're actually growing. And this I am learning each and every day. Learning that not everything is clear. Learning that not everything is certain. And learning that I have to trust God in this process, even without having the full picture. Whew, that took a lot out of me just to say that. Because like I say, as somebody that loves control or loves being in control and not having the full picture, it can be very scary with trusting God with your next. But Proverbs 3 verses 5 to 6 tells us to trust God with all our hearts and lean not on our own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him and He will direct your paths. That's one of my anchor scriptures for 2026. Faith often grows strongest in the unknown. It's easy to trust when everything is mapped out. But the real trust develops when you take a step forward without knowing exactly how everything will unfold. Faith, the real faith. It's easy to trust when everything makes sense. It's easy to trust when all the dots are connected. But when you don't know what's coming, that's when your faith is put to the test, and that's where your faith grows. And that's something many of us experience at different points in our lives. Maybe you finishing one chapter. Maybe something ended. Maybe you've outgrown a season. And now you're asking yourself, what's next? I've kind of looked at this through a different perspective. I've tried to look at this through a different lens and ask myself rather, what if the discomfort I'm feeling right now in this moment isn't something I should run away from? What if this discomfort is actually an invitation to pause morale, an invitation to reflect, an invitation to realign, an invitation to listen more carefully? Because sometimes clarity doesn't come from rushing ahead. I've learned that sometimes clarity comes from being willing to sit in the in-between season a little bit longer. a little bit longer than usual. Sometimes I've been so used, or in the past, I've been so used to rushing out of discomfort, rushing out of what feels uncomfortable without taking into consideration that maybe this is time for me to just pause, sit a little bit longer, reflect, realign, and listen carefully to what's God's next steps for me. So if you're finding yourself in a season where the next step isn't complete, if you're finding yourself, in a season where the next step isn't completely clear, please know that you're not alone and you're not behind. You are simply in a space where growth is quietly happening, where preparation is quietly taking place, where something new is beginning to take shape even if you can't see it yet. So don't rush to get out of the discomfort. Don't rush to get out of the certainty, but rather sit and listen to the still small voice of God pushing you and moving you into the direction that He wants you to be. Thank you for taking a few minutes to pause and reflect with me today. This is What's Next, where we explore faith, wellness, growth, and navigating life's transitions one step at a time. And always remember, you don't need to know the full plan to take the next step. I'll see you in the next reflection.